GST Centre Overview. The GST Centre is a very important area as it does provide you an overall view of businesses' GST and PAYG withholding position at any given point in time. In this section, Carol is going to take a closer look at the GST Centre so you can see all the functionality provided in this area. So from the left-hand side navigation bar, let's go down to our GST Centre. The GST dashboard is broken down into 3 tabs: To Do, History, and Payments. This allows for a quick snapshot of what needs to be lodged, what has already been lodged, and what payments have already been paid against the previous lodgements. By recording all aspects of GST and PAYG lodgements in this area, Carol has a clearer picture of Dippy's overall GST and PAYG commitments, which allows for Natasha to use as part of the cash flow planning process and discussions with Damien. Let's take a look at the GST Centre. So in the middle of the GST Centre, you have the summary. This gives you figures relating to GST, only showing the GST collected and GST paid for the current quarter that you are in, or month, if it is a monthly BAS, of course. And from the right-hand side, let's take a look at settings. We'll go to tax settings, and this is where you would go into this area to change any lodging frequency, changing the simpler or detailed GST coding. PAYG withholding could go back to quarterly. PAYG instalments could go back to monthly or annually, and it could also go back to a rate. And if you need to add in any other taxes. The other thing that QuickBooks GST Centre does for you automatically is it will change the accounting method for you. All you need to do is choose the accounting method. So in this case, we're going to change to accrual. Add in the new start date of the new method, and then the system will automatically process an adjusting entry for you and will be picked up in the next BAS. Just change that back and we'll go back. The other thing that settings also does is you can edit rates and you can add group rates as well. The run reports is where you'll find each report that is required for you to process your BAS. So you can review any one of these reports to help you calculate the BAS, transactions without GST. It reminds you, do we have transactions without GST? We've got the GST detail report, which shows you all the GST income and expenses. So let's go back to the quarter that we did. So I'm just going to add in the correct date. So I've just added in the quarter of July to September 22. It is accounting method cash. Let's run that report and you can see this is what your detailed report looks like. Quite handy for you to review and ensure that all your tax codes are picked up correctly. So let's go back to GST Centre. Back to run reports. So you can see you've got some great reports for you. Now, one of the reports I want to discuss with you is what we call the GST amendments report. This report will show you any transactions that have been changed after the last BAS lodgement. So we have actually lodged the BAS from July 2022 to September 2022, but someone's actually gone in and added in a new expense in September 2022. So for us to capture this particular expense GST, this GST amendment report, what it will do is it will produce an amendment to the actual GST Centre wizard. So if we take a look, we'll go back to the GST Centre. Let's run that report, go to GST Summary. Now this, and of course, we've got to choose the correct date that we're after. So I'll just change that. So this is the correct date that we're looking at, is July to September. And you can see that this is our GST summary report. Only GST summary. Nothing to do with PAYG at this stage. It actually does let you know that you have transactions before filing in this period and you've got an exemption report. So it's actually letting you know that when you go in to run your wizard, so let's go back to the GST Centre, and when you next go in to run the next BAS, which in this case will be October to December, we'll choose Prepare BAS. It's actually letting you know that you do have changes to transactions from the previous BAS period, and you can review the changes here, which will take you to the GST amendment report. And what it does is it actually adds in that extra $1,500 for September in this particular period. So please note that these figures might be slightly different to your GST summary report, as this is auto-adjusting the GST amount from the GST amendment report. And let's close. The other thing that you have is export work papers. So you can use the export work papers, as you can see, which is the same BAS work papers that we did in the books reviews. We've already done ours. But if you want to, you could go back into that BAS work papers, export it out as a PDF and save it under the client's name if you need to and if that is your work process. Under the To-Do tab shows you the next BAS or IAS lodgement which needs to be lodged. Under the To Pay, it's actually letting me know that we've got two, either IAS and the BAS, that we need to pay. Please note the IAS, the amount that was due was $5,200, but we've got a balance of $2,000. This lets me know that Damien's only paid $3,200 and we still have $2,000 on his IAS to pay. We do have the full BAS yet that we need to pay. So what we do is we'll go over, because Damien's rung us and said, yes, I've actually paid that amount of $1,748. You'll see it go through the bank today, as well as the extra $2,000 for the November IAS. So all you need to do is choose Record Payment. And for the BAS, he said he's paid $1,748. Choose the account that he's paying it from, because this is actually going to match in the bank feeds. I'm just going to choose this account called Damien Clearing Account just for now. I'm going to change it to the 1st of December 2022. I'm going to tab. You can enter in a memo if you want to and click Save. Once you click Save, you can see that that BAS has now disappeared, and where we will find it is under History. There's the BAS and there's the IAS that we've fully paid and the BAS, and here are the payments. So it actually lets you know that the payment for the IAS October was $5,600. The BAS for July to September has been paid and it's $1,748. And also the IAS November 2022. If you accidentally produce a incorrect amount or to the incorrect IAS or BAS, you can delete it. If I delete that, it'll take it back to the to-do list. As you can see, it's now sitting there again. So you can see this is really handy area for you to control all of the BAS payments, the BAS lodgements, and you can review the history as well. Let's go back to the to-do. Now, not forgetting, if a client is going to record part payment, say $5,200, the IAS, and he only pays, say, $4,000, of course there will be monies owing to the ATO RBA account. So in QuickBooks Online, what will happen is this will come out of the ATO clearing account, and the ATO clearing account is for you to reconcile to the ATO RBA account. So if there's any interest that you need to add in, you can easily add it in via a journal and reconcile to the ATO account. The GST Centre also has the feature to unlodge and undo a BAS. This is only available to accountant users. So if there needs to be an amended return or if something has gone wrong with a previous BAS and you're doing maybe a rescue work, you may need to look at having to undo some of these BASs and IAS. There is a little bit of a trick to this though. Please note, it depends on when you need to go back to. So if I had to undo my BAS, say for the July to September, you can see that unlodge this BAS is not highlighted. But if I go back to the previous IASs that were after the July to September BAS, I'll go to the last one that I lodged, which was November. And you can see I need to unlodge this IAS first. Caution, when you unlodge this IAS, the actual journal that's produced when you mark as lodged an IAS and BAS, the journal will also reverse out in your GST control accounts. So please note your balance sheet amounts as well. Then you just have to go back until you get to the correct IAS or BAS that you are actually lodging or unlodging, I should say. So just be careful with that one. Carol can now see that there are no outstanding tasks in the GST Centre. Furthermore, she can now view the history and payments for Damien. Carol now advises Natasha that she has closed the books for Zippy Electrical and Data Services for the September quarter and didn't come across any significant changes that would impact on Natasha's preparations for end of financial year. You will find more information on this topic in the module called Preparing a Set of Accounts End of Financial Year.